We are here today with Anne Sinclair, and she works in biomagnetics. And we're going to talk with her a little bit about what that means. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about her personal journey and go from there. So, hi, Anne, welcome.
Hi, Tracy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And I'm excited to start the conversation and learn a little bit more. I've not really had a lot of experience with biomagnetic therapy, so I'm really interested in hearing more about that. But if before we do that, let's talk a little bit about your menopause journey. What has your experience been?
Well, right now I'm in perimenopause, going into that menopause. I have had, as far as symptoms, hot flashes. I've gone through, the night sweats, trouble sleeping, a little bit of the anxiety and the focus issues,
Mm.
and even like the dry skin and sort of, I think, an uncomfortable feeling about yourself just
Mm.
in general as you're going through a different phase in life.
Yeah, so that's like a almost a mental aspect, isn't it? It's more
Mm.
like just not feeling like yourself.
Right.
Yeah, that's the
Right.
what I've definitely I'm in perimenopause, so I totally feel a lot of that. It's really funny too for me was I didn't realize itchy skin was part of it, and I still occasionally will just go at it like crazy. I itch, and my husband is like, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but I just need to get this out." So
Right.
I'm glad to hear that I'm not the only one. I found out a little while ago that that was part of it, and I was really surprised. I was really
Yeah.
surprised. So what have you done to help with your symptoms? What has helped you so far?
I think it has to be a lot of different lifestyle changes. I
Hmm.
think making sure that you have more of a balanced diet, making sure drinking plenty of water, taking time for yourself, exercise, whether it just be walking or finding something that suits you, whether it's an exercise routine. I think it's so important. Of course, I do biomagnetic hair therapy on myself, and I take holistic supplements too. So
Okay.
all of that, I think there's a big combination. I don't think
Hmm.
one thing is going to solve or help someone in
Yeah, I
any.
agree. I agree. I don't know if we've talked about this or heard if you've heard me talking about this. I definitely agree with a holistic approach where it's not just one thing. You got to kind of look at it as a whole and kind of approach it as the whole and not just throwing sometimes it's kind of like throwing spaghetti against the wall, but for the most part, trying to see it in a bigger picture and not just on the one symptom, because the one symptom, there's so many other things that can be behind it. So for
Right.
me, I think that's a really great point that you make about looking at it as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did I guess one of the questions I like to ask is, did your experience through the perimenopause inform or help you with what you do professionally with your biomagnetic therapy? Has it created a situation where you've dug into it, or is it something that is just part of what you do anyway and it's kind of happened?
Well, I think it makes you more sensitive towards the situation or people or other women that are going through it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have, I wasn't going through perimenopause when I started my biomagnetic pair therapy.
Okay.
So once I started, and after you kind of realize what's going on, um, I think you do become more sensitive towards women that are also going through it and wanting to help other women. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely. When women are coming in with the perimenopause, we take it as, approach of looking at everything, using the biomagnetic pair therapy, but also supplements and looking at what their lifestyle is.
Good points. Good points. So now that we've talked a little bit about your background, so tell me a little bit more about biomagnetic pair therapy. What does that mean, and what does that mean for women in menopause?
Right. So biomagnetic pair therapy can be used on anyone, and it's non-invasive, it's low cost, and it really can be used with any other therapy that they're using, whether it be holistic or even if they're on different medications or anything else that they're doing. It can be used along with it. But it was introduced by Dr. Goyes in 1988. It's the use of magnets, and I have two right here. So basically, we're using these magnets. It can be a higher Gauss, but we can use simple ones like these. And we're looking at if I'm using the positive side of the magnet, the positive side can find any acidic imbalances in the body, and then the negative can find any alkaline imbalances. So yeah, so once we pair them up, once we find the alkaline and then the acidic, we're balancing the internal pH connection in the body. So when we do that, we're finding the different imbalances and we're balancing the body. And it's not the magnets that are doing the healing, but it allows the body to start to heal.
Okay.
When I'm working with women that are going through like perimenopause or menopause, we then look at dysfunctional pairs that are going to affect the glands or hormone production. So then we're actually looking for imbalances in the adrenals, the thyroid, the parathyroid, pineal gland, and those kinds of imbalances. So we can put magnets on those areas too.
How do you find the imbalance? Is it
It's
based
actually
on? Oh, I was just to say, is it based on their symptoms, or is it based on like an actual something that you do to?
Yeah, so I would actually physically put it on their body, and it's like a muscle testing. So I would be able to see if that's where an imbalance is. So once I see there's an imbalance, I already know the pairs that would be connected with a certain part of the body. So there's certain pairs that I would be able to look at and find. And once we find that matching pair, the body responds, and I know that the imbalance has been taken care of.
I gotcha. So you say that it's not the magnets, I'm sorry, but the body healing itself, and the magnets are what, facilitating that, or?
Yeah, so it's balancing, and it's taking that internal pH connection, and when that's made with the pair of magnets, then the body can just start to heal.
Okay. So one of the authors that I read, or that I've read, she's an OBGYN who specifically works with women in menopause, and talks about women in our age group being more alkaline. Do you find that to be the case in your experience? Like they seem to be more heavily alkaline than they are. No, I'm sorry, heavily acidic than they are alkaline.
Yeah.
Because she advocates for a more alkaline diet to help raise that acidity up or away. Does that make sense? To take the acidity and help to balance. So eating more alkaline type foods to help pull that balance back in. Is that something you find too?
Well, and what I'm looking at is more the internal pH balances, so not the overall body. Because I know some people have gotten testing on their pH to see if they're more acidic or more alkaline, and I do not do that. So I'm looking more at the internal connections of the pH and not the overall. I know people have done, like urine tests for pH to see if they were more acidic or alkaline, and I don't do that.
You don't do that. Okay. Well, I was just curious because it seems like, it's, I'd love to see how things kind of bridge across different practice and, and things like that.
Right.
So when you work with someone, how many sessions, or how long are the sessions? What does it look like to come in and have a session with you?
So if someone comes in for a session, it's about an hour and a half to 2 hours. They are laying on a massage table and they're fully clothed. They have their shoes on because I'm actually using their feet for the muscle testing. And I know a lot of people use muscle testing with their arm or their hands, but I'm actually using their legs because they're laying down.
Okay.
After I find all the imbalances, those are actually taped. The magnets would be taped on the body and left on the body for about a half hour.
Okay.
And then that would be a typical appointment. It depends. And there's no rhyme or reason. Sometimes one appointment, someone will call me back a week later and say, I just feel great. And then other times it can take 2-3 appointments. I tell people to plan on 3 appointments. People that have been sick for a while, in order for them to feel a little bit better, it can take more than 3. But I tell people just to plan on an average of 3 appointments.
So when they have the magnets taped down, do they meditate? Do they chill out? Do they read a book? What happens during that time?
So that time I do ask them to, to just lay there, and sometimes I put music on, calming music. Usually people don't want music. Sometimes people fall asleep. Sometimes people fall asleep once they hit the table because it's, right after work, or they just have been doing a lot that day and they're just exhausted. So a lot of people just enjoy it because they can take that time and relax, which we don't do.
I was just going to say, doesn't that say something for how we are? Because if that's the only time we can relax, we need that so much more.
We do.
So that sounds really interesting. Is there anything else that you do with the magnetic therapy, like aftercare, or anything that you send them home to do, to work on, like homework or anything like that in between?
No, I mean, sometimes we will get into, and like when we go into microbioenergetics, we'll get into like emotional components, so we can talk a little bit about that. But basically, when a person leaves, they're going to want to drink water make sure that they're hydrated for 24 hours. And that's about it. I mean, there's really nothing that they need to do afterward.
Easy
After the
peasy.
appointment. Yeah.
Awesome. So what, in your opinion, are 3 small steps that we can take, the women that are listening to this that are in menopause or perimenopause or any stage of menopause? What are the 3 small steps that you think that we could take right now to help with our menopausal journey?
Yeah. I definitely think taking time for ourselves. I mean, like we just talked about, someone's laying on the table and they're falling asleep. There's a reason. We all need that time, and we need to take the time. We need to take the time to just engage in something that's calming, whether it's meditation, mindfulness, praying, but just taking that time throughout the day for ourselves. Eating a balanced meal, drinking a lot of water, sounds simple, but in this time of day, it's so hard. We live stressful lives. And then I think supplementation, I even, I have at my office, I have supplementation for the gut microbiome. And I think the gut is so important because, 60 to 90% of our neurotransmitters are produced in our gut. We're talking about the dopamine, the serotonin, the GABA. And so if our gut is imbalanced, we aren't going to feel good. We're going to be tired. We're going to be grouchy. We're going to be sad, could be tense, but the gut and the brain are connected, and we need to take care of our gut.
For sure. What do you recommend for gut health?
Well, in my office, I do have, I sell products that are the gut and the brain and the connection. So it's food for your brain. It's pre and probiotics for the microbiome, for your gut, and also for that connection, for that access. I think it's so important, and sometimes people just feel such a relief once they are fixing their gut. We try to do that, and we should be able to do that just through eating. Just through eating healthy meals. But when we've been on antibiotics, or if we have had inhalers for asthma, if we've been on birth control, there's just so many things that really wreak havoc on our guts. And sometimes we need that little boost. So yeah, I work with a company that has specific prebiotics and probiotics for mental wellness.
Okay.
And it really helps.
Awesome. What kind of, I'm all about the food. So just curious from your perspective, what kind of foods will help? Obviously we do need some help with supplementation. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we can't get, I don't think 100% up to par with food unless we're very, very, very specific and very on top of it. It takes a little bit of time, but in that sense, what type of foods do you recommend for helping with getting that gut balance with maybe, some supplementation on the side as well?
The company that I work with, we really talk about the Mediterranean diet, and just a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits, and just knowing, we can get probiotics we can get it from yogurt, kefir, kombucha. We can get our prebiotics from food also. And those can be, and we can get phytobiotics too, in our foods with the grapes and the different fruits, the apples and the dark chocolate, that can help too. So I think just having a really balanced, healthy meals, but really concentrating on the fruits and vegetables.
Okay, awesome. Do you have any other, we're going to wrap up here in a minute, but before we do you have any other suggestions or thoughts on ways that we can help kind of alleviate some of our symptoms or get to the root of our hormonal imbalances through menopause?
Yeah, I think it's just knowing your body, and I think it's just realizing what's happening throughout the day. There's a point where, I know that I have to drink more water than I used to. Going through the day and realizing that, okay, I'm not drinking as much as I should. We can't get away with the things that we used to get away with, and knowing, and keeping up with just maintaining healthy meals, not skipping the meals, but making sure eating healthy meals, and just being mindful through the day and taking that time away, just to be by ourselves and meditating, and just a calming environment.
Yeah, let me hold on. I got somebody at my door.
Okay.
Oh, he's gone. My dog's freaking out. Oh, never fails. They can see me, so they just were standing there, and then my dog's flipping. So.
Oh, I have 3 dogs, so I thought one of them was going to come back.
And my son's supposed to be taking care of this, but never. So we'll see how that goes with the editing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get you interrupted there.
Okay.
But I agree that we need to, that's one of the things that I think, I was thinking earlier too, that we just can't do some of the things that we used to be able to do when we were 20, right? And that, I think, is one of the hardest things to kind of come to terms with when we're dealing with these changes, because all of a sudden our bodies are saying, no, sorry.
Right.
And that's hard because you get habit, right? And habits are hard to break, and things change. And I think part of it is a transitionary process where we have to get used to
The new
this.
norm.
Yes, a new normal, a new thing. And it's not so much that it's a bad thing that we have to do, but it's a different thing. And that can be a challenge because, again, change is hard. So
Mm-hmm.
getting used to being able to listen to our bodies. We've also been trained not to listen to our bodies
Right.
so much,
Because we're stressed all the time and we're always going, and we
Mhm.
have a minute and we're looking at our phone, or we just never take time just to think about our bodies and what we're just even breathing.
Yeah.
you
Well, I've
know
had I've had in my business and my coaching practice, I've had women who just didn't know if it was okay to trust what their body was telling them. They, you just don't, you're not used to it. You're used to having somebody else tell you, okay, this is normal, this isn't normal, this is that, that is that. And you're like, just that whole new experience of having to listen to our internal guidance, both, physically and mentally and spiritually, even, all the things. If my body's telling me that I'm not hungry, then just because it's dinner time or just because it's lunchtime, should I be eating right now or should I wait or what should I be doing? And it's like, that's a tough new way to be.
it is. It is. Yes, you're right.
But
Oh,
so I really appreciate you being here.
yeah.
And I enjoyed having our conversation and learning a little bit more about the biomagnetic pair therapy. That's something I'd never heard of before. So very interesting. And
Yeah.
I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And to all of you guys listening, I will talk to you next week.